Hi there, my name is Lucie Ellis, Executive Editor of Vivo, part of the Informa Pharma Intelligence Group, and I'm joined in the now more familiar virtual format that we're seeing by Dr. William Hait, the Global Head of Johnson & Johnson External Innovation. So thank you for taking the time to join me today and to speak with me on behalf of ChinaBio Partnering Forum and the EBD Group. So welcome.
My pleasure. Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
To get us started then, I wondered if you could talk a bit about why Johnson & Johnson attaches importance to external innovation and what your role is there as the head of that group, and how partners complement external innovation in your strategy.
Of course, well, what we know at Johnson & Johnson is that a great idea that can ultimately help consumers or patients can come from anywhere in the world, not just within the four walls of a healthcare company, no matter how large it is. So we've tried to strike what we've called an elegant balance between our internal, very deep expertise across the three J&J sectors with collaborations and connections to innovators around the world. And my role is to lead a group that makes those connections, builds relationships, nurtures them, creates collaborations, and ultimately can lead to licenses, sometimes for acquisitions. And we've been very good at it over the years. And we have an infrastructure that was designed to optimize our interactions with innovators, no matter where they live.
And perhaps it might be useful then to hear a bit about your role within that and what it is you do day to day.
Yeah, so I lead a group that is comprised of three basic innovation areas or areas for execution. One is the innovation centers. We have innovation centers in what we refer to as innovation hotspots or hubs, such as Shanghai, London, San Francisco, and Boston, Massachusetts. We also, and I lead that group. The other group, the other people in my group run the incubators, which are called JLabs. And those are located throughout the world. We have 13 or 14 of these JLab incubators. And our newest one is in Shanghai. And the third component in the External Innovation Group is our investment fund called Johnson & Johnson Development Corporation. So we have the tools to make investments in innovators and new companies that we help create. And it's an extremely active group. For example, we have over 600 JLab companies, either in residence or graduates, and our innovation centers do look at thousands of opportunities. Since we've gone into existence, we've looked at 10,000 opportunities in the innovation space to build this network of collaborations. Also in my group are two other important areas that I should mention. One is the World Without Disease Accelerator. And maybe we'll get to more of that later, but it's a very unique part of Johnson & Johnson. And the final is called the Johnson & Johnson Lung Cancer Initiative, which looks to bring the expertise from across J&J, the consumer expertise, the medical device expertise, and the pharmaceuticals to try to solve one of the world's great problems, and certainly a great problem in China, which is lung cancer.
And that's interesting, actually, and leads into what I was going to ask you next, which are what are your focus areas across Johnson & Johnson innovation globally and then specifically in China?
Yes, so as I mentioned, and I'll start with lung cancer, that's certainly one of our major initiatives. And you know, in almost every country of the world, it's a huge problem. The other is this idea of creating a world without disease, which sounds somewhat unrealistic, but on the other hand, it was designed to pivot our research and our collaborations to the areas of disease prevention, intercepting disease intercepting a disease-causing process before it ever becomes a disease, and then early detection, so we can diagnose diseases early enough where they can still be cured. This is really critical. Each of our sectors, consumer, med device, pharmaceuticals, have very clear enunciated strategies. And those strategies what guide us to look for collaborations. So for example, in our pharmaceutical group, we focus on oncology, immunology, cardiovascular metabolism, neuroscience. Those are areas where we look for collaborations. In our medical device group, in orthopedics, in general surgery, these are, and in interventions like atrial fibrillation, vision care, these are critical areas for us that we look for collaborations. In our consumer group, skin health, very important, for example, and self-care, which has become even more important in the age of COVID-19.
I think that's interesting to hear about your work there in earlier detection and prevention. I think that's something we're hearing more about in our sort of coverage of this area and this industry, and something we've been talking about recently when it comes to oncology. So where, thinking about that and the other areas that you've mentioned, where do things like digital health and new technologies and artificial intelligence and machine learning, how do they fit into your strategy?
Well, as you are well aware, the ability to aggregate enormous amounts of data, and then with data scientists, try to find signals from all of the background information that could lead to new insights for new products, ultimately. That is fundamental now, given that technology has allowed us to work in this way. So data science has become a key element across all of J&J. One of the things that COVID-19 has taught us is that the future is not some distant thing anymore. We're living in the future of healthcare. We're digital health, we're direct-to-consumer healthcare, where telemedicine is absolutely essential. Something that China has led the world in, for example, with tremendous opportunities and breadth and experience now in telemedicine. What we're seeing in the US and other countries in the world, because of the overwhelming burden that COVID-19 has created on healthcare professionals in healthcare facilities, that people are unable or unwilling to seek care outside of their home. And this has led to an acceleration of telemedicine, digital health, and the kinds of things that we were anticipating would happen in the future, but now the future is upon us.
I think that's something we've been talking about a lot, and how things have changed from perhaps virtual doctors' meetings being in sort of the tens and now in the thousands for different companies. It'd be interesting, I think, for us to see how much of that stays around when the pandemic hopefully and eventually comes under control a bit more. Surely that's an area you're really having to look to partners for when we're talking about data science.
Absolutely. So although we have built a sizable data science group at J&J, it never can be enough. As I mentioned as we started, the great ideas, whether they're in data science, whether new algorithms, new ways of dealing with data, of aggregating data, curating data, utilizing that data in sophisticated ways, those great ideas can come from anywhere. One of the areas that, for example, where data science has become just a part of drug discovery, where using huge databases, for example, sequencing individual cells for their genomic characteristics, their protein characteristics, so genomics, proteomics, from different types of diseases. So single cell analysis leads to an extraordinary amount of data, and how you make sense out of that data and how you can draw hypotheses to be tested from those data are part now of the drug discovery process. It really is a way that technology is driving everything we do. And if you think about the operating room, where robotics and the ability to download radiologic images into robotic platforms that help guide our robotic bronchoscope called Monarch, where utilizing images that are now translated by algorithms into three-dimensional depictions of the bronchial tree, and the robot, with the use of the operator, can snake its way all the way to the periphery of the lung, very much like colonoscopy. And if there are any lesions, can biopsy those lesions, and we're working on devices to treat those lesions right through the robotic Monarch bronchoscope that is driven by the ability to take data off a CT scan and create it into a three-dimensional image that guides the robot to the right area of the lung. It's truly extraordinary.
I agree. I think the advances that we've seen in areas like robotics and other technology-driven developments are fascinating to follow and see how that works.
And even at J&J, because we're so broadly based, we have devices now that that analyze your skin at home, and using data from the analysis of your skin can recommend products for better skin health. It's truly a new world. And our health tech group can set up virtual clinics. So we've set up a virtual pain clinic where literally people from around the world can share their experiences for what worked for them, for their types of pain, and utilize that to set up studies and analyses to say, for this type of pain, this product might be best, and for this type, this product might be best, all from aggregating huge amounts of data through virtual clinics. It's truly amazing.
I think that's a key point there, is when you talk about technology and what we're able to do, but keeping the patient involvement in that and how you translate that into the real world. I think that's an interesting point. What is J&J's role then, considering we're talking about this with ChinaBio and EBD Group? What is their role overall in the Chinese healthcare ecosystem? And how do you have to approach business in China that might be different to other markets?
Right. Well, Johnson & Johnson has recognized the importance of innovation and opportunities in China for many, many, many years. In fact, Paul Janssen met me probably almost 50 years ago, set up a joint venture with the Chinese government in Xi'an, which is a company called Xi'an Janssen, where for years we've partnered with the Chinese people on developing, in that case, pharmaceuticals. We have a major device R&D center in China. We have an innovation center in Shanghai. And as I mentioned, our incubator, our JLabs in Shanghai, as well as our consumer group, very, very active across Asia Pacific, but recognizing that China's amazing, absolutely amazing substrate of people with so much expertise and so much to offer. And it's our job to connect, to find ways to connect with the innovators in China. We're very proud of the fact that going way back to the Xi'an Janssen days, we've been consistently a partner with the expertise in China to bring better products, whether consumer products, surgical products, or pharmaceuticals to people, not just in China or Asia Pacific, but for people around the world originating in China.
And how do startups and emerging companies, how do they approach the Johnson & Johnson innovation teams? You've mentioned JLabs in Shanghai, and I know you have JLabs set up in other areas as well. So how do they approach Johnson & Johnson innovation?
Right. So for a startup company that needs some sort of assistance. It could be space in a JLabs. It could be an investment through our investment fund, or it can be just access to our internal expertise across the sectors. The innovation centers have leadership in each of the major areas: pharmaceuticals, medical device, and consumer. And they're very tightly connected to the JLabs. So if a new company or an innovator who would like to start a new company connects with our innovation centers, then we can use all the tools in our toolbox to improve the probability that a great idea, which, as I said, can originate anywhere, could someday help a consumer or a patient. So directly to the innovation centers is probably the simplest thing, or the JLabs. Dan Wang leads our Asia Pacific Innovation Center, located in Shanghai, and Sharon Chen leads our JLabs, also located in Shanghai.
And what is it then? You've mentioned sort of expertise in all the different areas, pharma, medtech, and consumer. But what is it that Johnson & Johnson Innovation can offer over and above maybe some of its peers in this space?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of unique things about J&J. First of all, as you mentioned, it's the largest and most broadly based healthcare company. So from skin health all the way through sutures, robotic surgical devices, and pharmaceuticals, and all types of pharmaceuticals: small molecules, large molecules, cell therapy, nucleic acid therapeutics. In a company as large and deep as J&J, as broad and deep as J&J, there has to be this kind of deep expertise in all these areas, so we can continue to grow throughout the years. And we've been doing that for over 130 years. And our job is to connect innovators with the people inside the company who could offer them any of this type of expertise. And we do that directly through the innovation centers, the JLabs, and through our investment fund. We make equity investments and ultimately participate in licenses and acquisitions. So we offer a full menu, the full spectrum of ways that innovators can accomplish their dreams. Because we like to think that we start with almost a science fiction story. This is our dream, that someday there won't be lung cancer, or someday there won't be colorectal cancer, or someday no teenager will have to worry about acne. This is the kind of a thing that we want innovators to join us and make a huge difference in the world. That's what we're all about. And we know that we need partnerships to achieve these very substantial goals.
Great, thank you. That's useful to hear, I think, the perspective of what you offer and how entrepreneurs and those developers can be involved. The coronavirus pandemic, so COVID-19, obviously we're all still familiarizing ourselves with the new way of working and how things are changing there, and it's caused tremendous disruption across the globe and also the healthcare industry. So how does the pandemic perhaps affect partnerships that you do look for, and how do you expect COVID-19 to impact the future of healthcare if we're looking ahead?
Yeah, there's no question that this situation, this pandemic caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus, has changed the world. And to your earlier point, I don't think we're going back to where we were. It has lasting impact, and it's caused us to accelerate our thinking about opportunities in healthcare that we thought would be out 10, 15 years from now, but they're here now. So, for example, our vaccine program was built years ago on collaborations. So although our team is located in Leiden, the Netherlands, we work very closely with other companies and very exceptional academic investigators. One is Dan Baruch at the Beth Israel Medical Center, part of the Harvard Medical School. Dan has been instrumental in our Ebola vaccine, our HIV vaccine, and now our SARS-CoV-2 vaccine. These are long-standing, built-to-last relationships. We're also partnering with academic institutions to screen our compounds against the virus. We work very closely with the Rega Institute in Belgium, for example, that has the requisite assays for these kinds of high throughput screening against the new virus, as another example. Overall, however, we are seeing what I believe will be a massive shift in how healthcare is delivered, because now the consumer really will be in the center. Just like I don't know too many people who go to the bank anymore to do their banking. Soon, I don't know, we won't see too many people who are going to the doctor's office for routine primary care. You can imagine that through telemedicine, at-home diagnostics, the delivery of pharmaceuticals to your door, that's going to be here. It's going to change. It has changed, and I don't think it's going to go away. And I think J&J is perfectly set up to take advantage of how we see the future of healthcare because of, for better, for worse, unfortunately, what COVID-19 has shown us.
I think that's a really salient point to reference, that the vaccine technology comes from a legacy partnership. I think that's very telling of how the company is built and your role in seeking innovation from elsewhere. Yeah. Thinking about external innovation then, what would you summarize as your goals for that group when you're looking ahead? What are your goals for external innovation at J&J?
You know, at J&J, it's very simple because our goals are embedded in our credo. And I urge everyone who's not taken a look at the J&J credo to take a look. And because we live and die by it, literally. And our goals are first and foremost to the people who use our products. Our goal is to make absolutely certain that our products are of the highest quality and that they reach as many people as they possibly can. The second is to our employees. We have almost 150,000 employees around the world, and their health and their welfare and their well-being and the respect for them as individuals, regardless or independent of their race, their religion, their gender, is critical to J&J. Third, we believe we have a responsibility to the communities where we are so fortunate to live and work, leaving those communities in good shape, protecting the environment, and making sure that we are absolutely great corporate citizens. And as we say, finally, if we do all those things really well, our shareholders will do fine because we have a responsibility to them as well. So external innovation is a partner for the innovators around the world, linking them into the expertise of J&J with the goal of living up to the standards set by the J&J credo.
Great, thank you. Well, that's gone through the questions I had for you today. Are there any other closing thoughts you'd like to add?
Well, again, just tremendous appreciation to having this opportunity to explain our innovation strategy, our external innovation part to people who will view this. We feel extremely fortunate and humbled when we go out in the world and see the extraordinary work that people are doing in China. But literally in every corner of the earth, someone has come up with a really spectacular idea, and we hope that they'll come talk to us about them and see if there's a way that together we can make their dreams a reality.
Great. Well, thank you, Dr. Hait. It's really interesting to hear about the different aspects of the external group there and what you're doing with the different JLabs and all the different institutions. So thank you for joining us today. I hope we will see each other soon in a non-virtual environment when it's the back up and running.
I hope so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.